After nearly 3 decades covering the Buffalo Bills, this guy knows what he's talking about. Welcome to Sal Speak, the place to be for hard-hitting analysis from Sal Maiorana of the Democrat and Chronicle.
Hi everybody and welcome to Sal Speak. I am Sal Maiorana and I am joined again this week by my good pal from Wham 13, the sports director over there, Mike Catalana. Nothing much happening this week in Bills land, huh?
Wow.
That was something else yesterday.
I will say it is a wow because, well, the one thing before we even talk about the move, man, things have changed. Yeah. Not a word had leaked out in Orchard Park about this.
That was nice to know, and that's why I believe Sean McDermott. Well, let's announce what happened. In case you were under a rock yesterday, Sean McDermott came out and announced that Nathan Peterman is going to be the new starting quarterback for the Bills, replacing Tyrod Taylor. And he gave the news to Tyrod on Tuesday, and then announced it to the media on Wednesday. And like Mike's point, usually this stuff leaks out, and I think this was a clear indication that this was McDermott solely making this announcement, making this decision, because nobody had this. I mean, not even apparently Tyrod's agent, who was a mouth, and you would have thought would have leaked it out in some way. So good job by the Bills for once to not let it get out, and it certainly was a bombshell. I was sitting there yesterday, Mike, 9:35 in the morning, and he starts off with the injuries. And then he said, well, I want to talk about this. And we're like, okay. And boom, down came the bomb. I was shocked.
I think, what are we shocked about? We're not shocked that he made the move. I think I'm more shocked at the timing.
The timing.
And I think that's the biggest thing. And you and I talked about it even before, the idea of, they've got the Chargers this week, and then they've got Kansas City, and then you've got New England, right? This is your stretch after 2 bad weeks that they could survive or be done, basically, one way or the other. And then, in normal thinking, right, maybe in Buffalo Bills thinking, it would be, you're done, now throw the kid in there and then see what he can do. He's not doing that. He's giving him a shot this week.
I think one of the keys to this decision is he's seen Tyrod Taylor for 9 games now, and he sees this offense, at least Rick Dennison's style of offensive play, is just not a good fit for the way Tyrod Taylor needs to play to succeed. And I think he sees Nathan Peterman as a guy who can fit the offense better. This is the kind of the style of play that he played under in Pittsburgh.
Right.
I think he figures, you know what, we're not really taking a step back by putting this kid in. Even though he's a rookie, they might be better off with this kid's skill set in this offense. Let's do it now before we're out of it. And maybe they can save the season right now.
I think you're making the right point. I don't think, there's people out there with this perception that this is giving up. And the national people, and you know who you are, who do not watch the Bills play. They look at numbers. And I think numbers are important. I think all the analytics and all that evaluation. But there is somewhat of an eye test. And for Bills fans, I think we both like Tyrod enough.
I do like Tyrod.
I like him as a guy. I think he's upfront. I think he was classy yesterday. I know you'll talk about that you talked to him. But I think he is what he is. And so I think they got to the point they go, you know what, we're going to give this kid a shot. It's funny. The perception is he's a 5th-round pick, so they're just throwing him out there.
Right.
If he was a 1st-round draft pick, I don't think people would be looking at it the same way.
Mike, I think if he was a 1st-round pick, he would have started from day one.
You're right.
Really.
You are right, but I do think the perception is, well, he's a 5th-round guy. Well, Tyrod was a 6th-round guy.
That's right.
So it's not the case. But I think it would be like, we weren't sitting there going, is Nate Peterman's the future? When do we go with the future? But they look at him as a guy they got. And there were people that had him maybe higher rounds. You always hear that about quarterbacks.
I thought he was a 3rd-rounder from what I had heard about the kid.
Yeah, and I've heard people say that a lot about him. So they got him in the 5th round, they did, and they like what they see. But I'm with you. I think they actually believe that it's going to be different, but that they're not taking a step back.
I think all along, my feeling on this season, and they surprised us by going 5-2. I didn't see that coming. I had said at the start of the year, if they happen to go 1-4, which was very possible with the first 5 games, I would have put Peterman in right there, because now you get him into meaningful games. The game still would have been meaningful at 1-4. You're playing real football, not preseason or end of the year. You're totally out of it. Get him in now and see what he is, because we know, just on all the moves they made in the offseason and preseason about trading guys away, getting picks, you know they were gearing up to go get a quarterback. So if they started off terrible, I would have gone to Peterman right then and see what the kid can do over a stretch of whatever it would have been, 9, 10, 11 games. They waited because Tyrod helped them get to 5-2. But in the last 2 weeks, Mike, Tyrod's been not very good at all. The defense has been horrible. It's a big part of it. Now they're 5-4, and I think McDermott looked at it and realized, you know what? Today, we are sitting in a playoff position. Maybe this kid, because I know what Tyrod can and can't do, maybe this kid can give us a little bit of a push, and that'll be enough to get us over the hump. Yeah. So it's fine. I would have said this if they were 5-7, go to Peterman then too.
Right.
But hey, I'm not going to knock this move by McDermott. I think he's doing the right thing. I know fans think he's quit on the season.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the case.
Well, I do want to say this. 17-year drought. It's brutal. We've covered them the whole time. We also covered them when they were good, right? So we know what it has been like.
We're that old.
We are that old. Going back to those days. Sean McDermott, when I say doesn't care, I'll say it. He doesn't care about the 17-year drought.
Nor should he.
He was not part of it. And I'll say this all the time. That's why I preface it this way. If 3 years ago they snuck in the playoffs somehow 8-8, 9-7, and they got beat, and the drought was gone, or 5 years ago, or 8 years ago, or 2 years ago, whatever it was, and they were the exact same team now, I don't think people would be so anxious on can they sneak in the playoffs.
You're probably right. You're probably right.
And Sean McDermott doesn't care about it.
That 17-year, that number just drives people insane.
And it should. You should be upset that your franchise did. But Sean McDermott wasn't. Sean McDermott has won more games than he's lost, at least to this point.
To this point.
He has nothing to do with the 17 years other than he said in the beginning, he accepts that's where they are. But if you really want him to go forward, give him the opportunity to do that.
Yep. Let's talk about what he could possibly bring to the offense. Now, look, they've been horrible the last 2 weeks. The Jets were up 34-7 at one point. Total garbage time, fourth quarter. 47-3 last week. Now, everyone will point to the defense as being absolutely horrendous and the reason why those games got out of hand. But, Mike, I will argue that if the Bills' offense had done anything in those games, perhaps maybe they probably weren't going to win the Saints game, but they certainly could have won the Jets game if they had played better on offense. Tyrod and that offense never gave the Bills a chance to be competitive in that game. So, Peterman comes in. Do you think that he can take this offense, this running game that has been sagging, utilize that properly, and then take these targets that he now has, Kelvin Benjamin, Charles Clay, Jordan Matthews, if I'm assuming he's going to play, Zay Jones is back. Can he be a difference maker?
Well, I think there's the possibility. Look, I don't want to read too much into what he did in the fourth quarter of that blowout game when it was garbage time. Yeah. But you do get a glimpse, like we saw in the preseason, of the way this kid plays, which is make the read, see the guy, throw the ball. Now, he'll probably turn it over. I mean, that does happen with young guys and young quarterbacks, but I think he'll do that. The shame of it is what we saw from Tyrod in garbage time really against the Jets when they got some points going. But in the last week, I mean, you did have Kelvin Benjamin. You had Charles Clay back. You have LaShawn McCoy. They're not loaded with weapons, but they have competent NFL weapons on the team, and they were not utilizing them. First drive, Tyrod went 3 times to Benjamin.
That was it.
And then he forgot about it. Can they really dictate coverage that much that Kelvin Benjamin's totally out of the game plan?
I think one of the key factors in McDermott making this decision was the ignorance of Taylor for Kelvin Benjamin last week. They brought this guy in thinking he could be a difference maker in a receiving core that was desperate for a difference maker. However, we know the scouting report on Kelvin Benjamin. We know he's not a burner. He's not a guy that gets great separation, but he will catch the ball if you throw it to him in a 50-50 situation. This is Taylor's primary weakness, though. And I think McDermott realized, you know what? We got this weapon. We know he can be good in our offense, but if our quarterback is going to ignore him, what's the point? Nathan Peterman showed on that one drive. He went to him 2 back-to-back plays. Now, I know, they're playing against ghosts at that point.
Right.
But still, he showed a willingness to throw the ball downfield to Benjamin. I think that had a big role in this.
So the first drive, Tyrod throws it to him on a slant, 9 yards. Great, because he can, he's not just tall, he's a big body.
Well, he's in a win leverage situation every time.
Exactly. Then he goes to him 2 more times. Once overthrows him, never gives him really a shot in the corner of the end zone. And the other time, which is what you get out of this guy. We talk about contested balls up in the air. He's basically got his defender on his hip. He's got him behind him. And the pass was, he's at the sticks too, which is so important. He's at the right place, and the ball's high and wide. Okay.
Well, the first one was the long one.
The long one, that's what I'm saying, in the corner.
Overthrew it by 5 yards.
But then the second one, he had him. And he had him open for a first down. And I would have said, okay, his first 3 balls he's thrown to the guy. if he would have gone a fourth time, a fifth time, a sixth time, a seventh, and you're down 20-3, 27-3, 34. At what point do you just go, sorry, Mike Tolbert, 5 yards down the field, I'm going to throw it to Kelvin. And if it's picked off, it's picked off. The world's not coming to an end. Tyrod never did that. And I think you're right. I think when he looked back at the tape again and sat with Rick Dennison and going, this is what we're seeing, why not give the kid a shot?
I wrote a column that'll be up tomorrow on our website about Rick Dennison. Can he take Nathan Peterman and insert him into this offense? Perhaps he can, but Mike, he has got to call a better game.
Yes.
I thought it was his worst game as the coordinator. I'm not a big believer in this guy at all, to be honest with you. I didn't really quite get the hire of Rick Dennison by McDermott. I'm not even sure what the tie was between those two. I didn't really like the hire in the first place, but I mean, these plays where he said coverage dictated we didn't go to Benjamin, or coverage dictated that we dump it off to Mike Tolbert on 3rd and forever twice in the game, or an option pitch to 250-pound Mike Tolbert. Yeah. These were just bad calls.
Is that coverage by the other team, or is that the coordinator covering for his quarterback?
Well, perhaps. Look, every receiver, big-time receiver, is going to get double covered. This is not a secret. So Kelvin Benjamin is the only guy on that receiving core that is capable of making the big play. Of course the defense is going to rotate over to him. You got to be willing to throw the ball to him.
And Sean McDermott on Monday, when he still said Tyrod's the quarterback, and you heard him say it, contested footballs. The NFL is about contested footballs. It is. We see it. We saw it in that game. Drew Brees threw it up. Thomas went up and got the ball. You have to be willing to do that. Now, will this kid do it? I would think he will try. The other thing I really want to see, and I don't know if it'll be on Sunday, but I want to see a Bills quarterback try to win pre-snap.
Yeah.
They never gave Tyrod that opportunity. Stand up at the line. Change coverages. I'm not saying he's going to come out and start, look, you guys know I'm a Philly apologist, right? And I'm watching Carson Wentz
do we ever?
A year ago. First game. Remember, they were planning on not starting him to begin in the year.
Right.
Then they make the trade of Bradford. 8 days later, Wentz is starting. First snap. That's against the Browns. First snap, he comes out. And I say, okay, what's this kid going to do? He barely played in the preseason. Comes out, first play. He's changing protection, moving guys around. He hasn't taken a snap in the NFL yet, a legitimate snap. That was on his first play. Now, I know he's first pick, second pick in the draft, whatever he was. But they trusted him. And now they trust him more and more and more. In the NFL, we know every time they play against Brady, Brady has you beat 80% of it before he even snaps the ball. Now, Peterman's not going to beat Brady.
And he doesn't even do it with great weapons, Brady.
Yeah.
Right? Throughout the years, he's never had studs at receiver. He just beats you because he's so good.
He's got Gronk he can win. He's got Edelman. He's guys that can win. But part of it is he knows what he's doing. Now, again, don't think I'm saying Nate Peterman's going to beat Brady. But that's the way quarterbacks win. They have to be able to not necessarily call all the plays, but you have to have some faith in your guy to do that.
I think the good thing with Peterman is I think he is a smart kid.
Right.
And he did this at Pitt. He played in a pro-style offense. They gave him responsibility, and that's a good thing moving forward. I think that's going to help him as he starts to stretch. Let's get to, we got a lot of comments today. Of course, whenever it's quarterback, it's a big thing. Gregory Paul says, we need a spark. Can we do any worse on offense with this kid? Like we said, I don't think they can do any worse. I guess it's possible. He could go out there and totally, deer in the headlights, lay an egg. But I don't think that's going to be the case. I think he's a pretty poised and, as I just said, pretty smart kid. I think he's going to be fine. I think he'll need help from his teammates. He's going to need the defense to keep the Bills in the game and make it more of so they aren't one-dimensional in this game. That'll help him too. Yeah. I think he'll be fine.
Here's what could be worse. It could be, the pick six type interception. Right. And in fairness to Tyrod, look, 3 turnovers against the Jets. Jordan Matthews reaching for a first down. The one with O'Leary when he gets up. And even Tyrod fighting to try to get it. And then this week he throws it to Charles Clay, maybe slightly off, but Clay's got to catch that ball, and that's the interception. You could have back. They goad him into something, and it's a pick six going the other way. Sure, that could happen, but they've been so bad these last couple of weeks that when you say worse, they got blown out by the Jets and blown out by the by the Saints.
Carl Zarconi says they suck. We've heard that before. We all know that. Rudy Zink says, good luck, Nate. Rather know now than later. We addressed that.
Yes, that's
exactly
a big thing.
The right point. Let's figure out what they've got before they dive into that free agent top of the round for a quarterback next year. Again, I don't have a whole lot of faith that Peterman is going to be their franchise guy, but I'd love to be surprised.
Yeah.
I'd love to be surprised and have them use those picks next year to fill the many holes that this team already has on the roster. So we'll see. Teddy Monteverde. Tyrod is a classy guy, but he's not getting it done. We can't do any worse than 56 yards passing. So to the point of him being classy, as I told Mike before we went on the air, I was in the locker room after practice, and he was over by his locker, just doing his thing, getting dressed, whatever. Shooting the bull with one of the PR guys. Yeah. I just walked over and I said, hey, I give you a lot of props for doing what you did today. And what he did was, after McDermott had made the announcement at 9:30 that Tyrod was being benched, Tyrod does an 11:15 presser every Wednesday in the media room. He did not have to do that yesterday. Yeah. He could have very easily said, well, I'm not the starter, forget this. He came in, he answered the questions, and what I liked best about it is I thought he gave some honest answers. He said right up front, am I disappointed? Yes. Do I agree with this with the move? No. So I gave him a lot of credit for that.
I'm with you.
He is a classy kid. I like him as a guy, but as the viewer says here, you can't do any worse than 56 yards. They got to move on.
And Tyrod, when you saw him angry and upset, was last year at the end of the year with that debacle of him coming off maybe his best game ever, that Dolphins
I understood,
game.
Mike. I don't know where you fell on that, but I understood that.
Right, but the way it was communicated and the way it was handled
they botched it.
Was botched.
Yep.
And he was angry, and he sort of let his feelings be known. And then think about it. So think about what happened from that day. I remember standing there in the locker room talking to him thinking, this kid will never be back here.
I know.
And then he hired the new coach. He comes in, and he's impressed by Tyrod's work ethic. He talked about it. It's a February cold day, and I'm in here, and there's Tyrod in there working. And he made the call to say, redo your contract, and we'll bring you back. And look, if he was playing better and more effective, I think he would probably still be starting, at least for now.
If Tyrod would have taken this team to the playoffs this year, there's 1 year left in his contract. The Bills would have brought him back next year.
I think they
would. I really do. Too. He would have been $16 million, which is average for an NFL starting quarterback. You could still have drafted your quarterback of the future, because I don't think they're going to re-sign Tyrod after next year.
Right.
That could have happened, but now it probably won't.
Oh,
he'll be done.
He'll be somewhere else.
All right, let's go. Michael Event Sr. says, we're in another Flutie and Johnson controversy. Tyrod was not calling the plays. He refuses to get away from the running game. He refuses to change. It's the coordinator. Look, there's not a Flutie Johnson controversy here. Not even close. Tyrod Taylor had 2.5 years to prove he could be the starting quarterback. This new coach has determined he's not the guy, so Nathan Peterman is the starter. Like we said, unless there's an injury or a complete incompetent meltdown by Peterman, he's the quarterback the rest of the year. So there's no controversy here. Yeah. There might have been controversy if we found out that Terry Pagula wanted to make this choice and McDermott disagreed, but that's not the case at all in this situation.
And this is a Sean McDermott call.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Dan Walker pointing out Peterman great at trick shots. We were just watching. Mike was showing me the video on his phone before he watched.
About him.
I hope he's that accurate in the game, because that was pretty impressive.
Yeah,
I like that. Let's see what we got here. I'll skip Chuck Wade's comment because he's giving you some business there.
Way
his
to
former
go,
colleague at WAM 13.
Aren't you busy? Aren't you busy doing something?
Dan Teeter, like the offensive line from any team, will say getting the ball out quick and knowing where your quarterback is in the pocket makes a big difference. That's true. Tyrod Taylor, I think, was a little bit difficult to block for as an offensive lineman, because he could be a little bit slippery back there. But I'll tell you what, Mike, what bothered me the most is that he wasn't more slippery.
Yeah.
I think Rick Dennison drilling it into his head that he had to be a pocket passer, I think hurt him ultimately.
Oh, I think it did
I would rather see him running around. Remember this, too. When he's being an athlete behind the line of scrimmage, running around, that's giving his below-average wide receivers more time to get open.
Yeah.
And if he could only have thrown the ball accurately or had the guts to throw it downfield, that might have worked.
He did it a few times, though. A couple of his passes earlier in the year to Charles Clay.
Right.
When he rolled out, where was that? It was in Atlanta, I think it was.
That was the one to O'Leary in
Beautiful,
Denver.
And you'd see flashes of that and just wonder why he can't do it more often.
Yeah, it's crazy. That really is really crazy. Kevin Duke says, I hope they lose every game the rest of the year. Well, I hope that's the case, because unless you're wanting to get the higher draft pick, but who cares? They've got enough draft picks early on next year. Let's see. Jeffrey Allen says, great move. Tyrod is a good backup. Period. We had this discussion on the radio.
Yeah.
I think, given the right situation, Tyrod could go somewhere for one of these lower echelon teams and be a starter. I
Right.
think there's enough there on tape to show that some coach might think he can get the kid straightened out.
I say
think
this
it's
all the
possible.
time, and I said it before. If Tyrod Taylor becomes a starter somewhere else, and it could happen, the Browns, the Jets, whoever it is, to decide next year.
Right.
The clock ticks from the moment he's there to when they're going to replace him.
That's right.
Because he has not shown in Buffalo, while he's shown flashes, and some of these national guys, I think they think they're looking at Russell Wilson when they start talking about Tyrod.
Yeah.
They don't watch the games. I mean, Tyrod's numbers are efficient. We know he's that. But if you watch him, and we watched every snap, you know his limitations. Other people think he's better. Okay, fine. Maybe he will become that guy somewhere else. But I think if he goes to another team, he will be that spot starter, eventual backup.
Yep. Mark Mailman Austin wants to know if Phillip Rivers is going to play, and I have a sense he will. He's in the concussion protocol.
He practiced limited basis yesterday.
So I think he's going to play.
Self-reported.
He started 185 consecutive games, so I think you are going to see Rivers, which that's a bummer for the Bills.
Yeah, because their backup is Kellen Clemens.
And then
Cardale Jones.
Can you imagine?
Something.
That would have been fun to watch if he had gotten in the game. Let's see. We got plenty of stuff today. Jeffrey Allen says Gruden picked him to be great before the draft. He said the same about Wilson. I'm assuming he's meaning Peterman.
Yeah.
Again, there's a reason why he's a fifth round. Well, there's probably several reasons why he's a fifth round pick. He doesn't have the prototypical size. I think his arm strength, I think from the scouts' perspective, was maybe just a bit above average, but certainly not, great.
Right.
He played. He couldn't even play at Tennessee. He left Tennessee.
Right.
Had a tough time there. So there are definitely some warts on Nathan Peterman. I don't know how great he's going to be, but I'm not sure he'll be Russell Wilson.
You want to if you're a Bills fan, you want to get excited. Just go to YouTube or find whatever and find the game against Clemson.
Absolutely.
Watch him beating them.
I'm writing my column for tomorrow, and I'm leading with that. I'm saying basically, if Bills fans want to have hope, here's the game that he told me, by the way, was the most memorable game of his career. I sat down with him, talked to him about it, and you watch what he did in that game against the second-ranked team in the country that ended up beating Alabama for the national championship. And everything you saw there, 308 yards, 5 touchdown passes, the way he orchestrated things, that's what you want your quarterback to look like. Now, that's college football. I understand. This is the NFL, a different beast. But he showed me attributes and qualities in that particular game that you drool over.
That's what you want to see.
That's
you
what
want to
see
the leadership part of it. You want to see a guy do that.
All right, let's see. Dan Queason, boy, I'll tell you, you have to pronounce these names. You're the TV guy.
Yeah.
All I have to do is
sometimes we
spell
just
them.
sort of.
He says, hope this pans out and Nate ends up being the savior. Too many other holes and could use the picks rather than a gamble on an unproven quarterback, which is what I said earlier.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I'd love to see this kid over these next 7 games and maybe a playoff game, prove that he really could be the answer.
It's going to be interesting with the picks. Look at the teams that are at the bottom. The Browns, maybe finally they're going to pick a quarterback, right? I mean, because we know that Deshaun Watson.
Fans watching Carson Wentz must just
and how about Deshaun Watson,
and
too?
Deshaun Watson,
well, the Bills
too.
could pass on him, too. But you say that, but you got some odd ones. San Francisco's now got Garoppolo. Indianapolis is worth keeping an eye on.
Yeah, because
they got Brissett.
Luck's future is up
Let
in
me
the
tell
air.
you something. If they're dumb enough to think Andrew Luck can't come back from this shoulder,
I know.
and I'm the Buffalo Bills,
Jump on it.
I would be trading those draft picks and I'd go get Andrew Luck.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He'll have had a whole year off.
Yeah.
I think he can heal.
But,
in
I
a
mean, they
year.
aren't that dumb, are they?
No, they can't be that dumb.
Okay, we'll see.
All right, let's see. Robert Barley asks, the season isn't close to being over. The quarterback's soot is complicated situation, I guess. It's complicated. You could very easily see Tyrod starting again before the end of the year. Like I said, I'm not ruling that out.
Yeah.
It would have to take, like I said, a real bad performance where Peterman gives them no chance, actually hurts them in their endeavor to win, or he gets hurt.
Right.
That's the only way you're going to see Tyrod back on the field.
Yeah, and it's funny. We talk about the way the players react. There's veteran guys on this team, guys that are close with Tyrod, guys that go, oh boy, here's a rookie going in there. But let me tell you something. It's one thing about the NFL. These guys are adaptable. Yeah. Because if Tyrod was out now, right? So they're, I say upset because he's their friend and they feel like he had success. Now they got a rookie. If this kid goes out there and throws, watch them jump on board.
They'll be lining up behind him.
They'll jump on board faster than the fans will. They'll be ready to go.
let's close on this, Mike. Let's talk about the defense because let's face it, we can't pin everything on Tyrod Taylor these last 2 weeks. This defense has been horrific. 81 points allowed. Last week was just an embarrassment. The Saints ran the ball 24 times in a row at one point. 200. They actually had 300 yards. I'm pissed.
Yeah, and then
they knelt down twice
to
go back to 298. They just dominated the Bills. It was embarrassing. Look, Peterman is not going to have a chance to win games, Mike, if the defense doesn't play better. He is not going to be able to outscore opponents given what the Bills are as an offense. The defense has got to get back and even play better than they did the first 7 games because we've discussed this. They were a bit of a mirage with all those turnovers, catching some lucky breaks. They need to be just more sound physically on defense and just be better.
And I will say this, McDermott harps on the fundamentals and all this stuff. I do think there is something to that. Their fundamentals, their positioning, all that was so poor that last week there were gaping holes. You can say, Lorenzo Alexander told us after, he said, it's man on man and we got whipped. They did.
They did.
But they were doing so many things improperly. And if they go back to that and rely on that, when I say the fundamentals, they were a good tackling team for 7 weeks. They have been a horrendous one for 2 weeks.
37,
and I do think
Pro Football
it's
Focus,
terrible.
37 missed tackles in the last 2 games. I'm not sure if they were much beyond 37 in the first 7 games of the year.
So don't blame scheme or anything else. You got the guy there. You're there to make the tackle. You got to make it. That's the first step towards them being better. Let's get to being average because they've been abysmal the last 2 weeks. You're right. If they don't do that, and to Tyrod's credit, you're not going to win the game when you're giving up 300 yards on the ground.
Absolutely. I asked a few guys in the locker room about the tackling issue. I said, look, is it part of the reason because you guys just don't do it in practice? And to a man, they all denied that and said it comes down to one thing. You have to be willing to stick your nose in there and wrap the guy up and tackle him. Lorenzo Alexander and Jerry Hughes specifically were adamant about that. They said tackling is a mindset. And you have to be willing to do it. They have technique. They know the plays. Right. You got to go do it.
And it's not just tackling. When they talk about the gap thing, there's spots they have to be in order to maintain their gap integrity, they'll say. Right. And there are times when you're a linebacker and hey, I ain't doing it, you're not doing it. Right. But you basically got to put your head in there and blow up that spot in order to force the guy to the other side. And they weren't doing that. I think the linebackers were as big a problem as the defensive line last week. It was a bad week.
Line got pushed out of the way too easily, and this linebacker crew I think it's a mediocrity.
Yeah.
I knew this at the start of the year. I wasn't fooled by, Ramon Humber he was leading the team in tackles early on. We've seen Preston Brown for 4 years now. He's a mediocre player. He's not great in coverage. He's a decent guy who I think should be a rotational guy for most teams. And Lorenzo's old.
Can I throw one other thing in there? I've had people say to me, they'll go with the young guys. Go with the young guys. Outside of Peterman, who's this young guy that people, all the young guys are playing? Yeah. Like he has put them on. That's the one plus for you. While they have old guys, they are playing the young guys. Milano's going to play. I think he's going to play more. Trey White started every game. I mean, they are, even Logan Thomas is out there they've got young players playing too. I don't know who these other young guys are that somebody is sitting there waiting for them. The young guy everybody's waiting on is starting a quarterback this week.
Absolutely. All right. Hope you enjoyed today's edition of Sal Speak on DemocratandChronicle.com. The podcast will be available on iTunes in a couple hours, so if you missed it or your friends want to listen to it, just go to iTunes and type in Sal Speak. You'll find it. Mike, I want to thank you again for filling in for my buddy Leo Roth.
Good to be here.
Leo, I think, is having his surgery tomorrow.
Get well, Leo.
Hopefully that starts the healing process and he can get back on his feet and maybe be back in here in a few weeks. So for Mike Catalana, I am Sal Maiorana. Thanks for being here. And I'll be out in L.A. Going to the ocean.
Hanging with the stars.
Hanging out with the stars. And I got to cover the football game too. But I'll be out there Sunday afternoon, so read my coverage in the DNC and watch Mike and his reports on WHAM 13. Everyone have a great day. We'll talk to you later.